Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Cindy Bishop Worldwide Group Coaching webinar. Today, for technology, I'll be covering unleashing the power of your database. Specifically, I'll be talking about newsletters. It's a very popular topic. It's certainly an important component for all of us real estate agents for staying in contact with the folks inside of our database. So that's what we'll be covering today. So move to the next slide. All right. My name is Gary Garrison. In addition to being a real estate broker, I'm also an old technology consultant. For those of you who do not know me, been consulting in technology for over 20 years, actually closer to 30 years now. And it's something near and dear to my heart, and something that I found that we in the real estate industry desperately need some guidance on. So I'm always happy to help with that. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to cover newsletters. Specifically, we'll cover a couple of really in-depth areas. So that one of the challenges that I have with technology is that you really only have two different ways you can cover something. You can either kind of gloss over it as more of a concept type of instruction, or you can kind of get down into the weeds and go through a step by step. And I do my best to kind of tackle both of those in the different coaching seminars that we do. And today, for you guys, is going to be fun-filled, step-by-step, which always an enjoyable approach to getting this done for you guys. So we'll do a lot of step-by-step, which will be on the surface, I think, a bit painful. Step-by-step instructions are, but it should be an eye-opener, should have some great information in here. And then I will have a document available through the portal that will have all of the associated and corresponding screen captures, of which there will be plenty. And so there was just really too much to include in this presentation. First thing that we'll start with will be newsletter options. As we talked about before, the foundation of your real estate business is your database, but there's just no two ways about it. So if you don't have a database, I always emphasize getting one, either something provided by your broker, if that's the best option available to you, or ideally through a third-party service where it's under your control, regardless of which brokerage you do work with. And there are a couple, Realty Juggler and Line Desk, that I recommend, and that we recommend through the Cindy Bishop Worldwide School. In order to grow your business, you need to be able to connect your applications and services to your database. This is something that's also been talked about and is really a no-brainer for those folks that have been doing this a while. Okay, so what we'll talk about here then is specifically connecting our database to, in this particular case, MailChimp, since that is a popular free service up to a certain number. It's like 2,000 contacts and 20,000 newsletters, emails per month until you start getting into a fee-based program with them. And it integrates very nicely with Realty Juggler so that you're not maintaining two separate databases or contact lists manually. You can easily share your new prospects and new contacts from Realty Juggler into MailChimp quite conveniently. And you can also synchronize the opt-out list to make sure that you're able to avoid trouble down the road. So inside of Realty Juggler and the mail menu option, you'll see the little monkey logo for MailChimp. This is the MailChimp newsletter. So this is where we will be working today inside of MailChimp. So just kind of give you a quick overview of the process. First you'll need to start with a newsletter. If your newsletter is a PDF file, then you will need to create an image if you're going to use, in order to use MailChimp. And I say that simply because inside of MailChimp, you can actually create the newsletter inside of MailChimp directly. Many people use a third-party services though. You'll define newsletter delivery. You'll test your newsletter before you send it out, which is a great feature. Rarely do you get everything perfect the first time. So that is always a tremendous feature to be able to test it. And then as soon as you're ready, you'll be able to go ahead and either schedule the delivery for it or just to go ahead and have it sent out directly from MailChimp. All right, so we're going to take a look at our first couple of options here for creating the newsletters. You can actually create it manually. Um, you can use a third-party service to do that for you, and then where you customize it, such as Old Republic. They're a great home warranty company in the first place, but outside of that, they also have what they refer to as a Realtor Toolbox, and I provided the link there for you. And it's a great feature if you want a quick and dirty. It's a 2-page newsletter where you can customize with your image and your other branding information and things like that, and then be able to have a PDF version ready to use to send out to your database. You can also physically create it manually, which is great for those folks that are creative and are good with good with language and have tremendous writing skills, of which I do not. I am writing impaired, so I tend to use a third-party service. Such as Old Republic. In this particular case, my brokerage is kind enough to provide a newsletter for their agents to be able to customize. You can also use a service like Service for Life, where they will actually provide a number of services, but one of those they'll provide is actually custom newsletters and other materials for you for a fee. And as you can see, the current fees that they have on their website are $87 per month if you do the monthly plan, or $799 per year. And if you are looking for something like that, I mean, you really ought to take a look at their site. They have a lot of neat things that they provide to the agents. So since we're talking about MailChimp specifically, we're going to go over the requirements for creating a MailChimp newsletter. First thing you'll need to have is a MailChimp account, and I hope everyone does if you've been involved with the Cindy Bishop School for a while, and if you've been listening to our webinars and involved in our coaching for the last couple of years. Hopefully you've gotten to the point where you've got your MailChimp account created. MailChimp does create what they refer to as a list by default. The list is nothing more than a collection of names and email addresses. And the reason they do it that way is that you can have multiple lists so that you can target folks for different types of mailings. So believe it or not, MailChimp does a lot more than newsletters. That just happens to be a big feature for real estate agents. And one of the reasons why I love working with them, that in effect they've integrated nicely with Realty Juggler, which was covered in last month's group coaching webinar. If you missed that, go back to that, and I'll walk you through the connecting both MailChimp to Realty Juggler. So your newsletter, of course, custom or customized, and you'll have to have image capture capability if your newsletter is in a PDF form. Okay, so for MailChimp, your newsletter options, as I mentioned previously, is you can create directly inside of MailChimp, which is a great feature. They've got tons and tons and tons of different formats. So you can be as creative as you like in order to be able to really present your own brand and personalize a newsletter to your liking. What's also nice about MailChimp is that you can use it to deliver pre-created newsletters. So those are the newsletters that we get from another service or we've created ourselves outside of MailChimp, and that's when we're going to have to use their feature that involves uploaded image files. So as you'll see here, what I noted down below is that most agents will use the pre-created newsletters, whether they're custom made for them and they come in a PDF form, or the customizable, and you can produce a PDF form from them outside of MailChimp, because that's what I will go ahead and cover here today. Now, the challenge for capturing an image for your newsletter is that your newsletters are created in your portrait format, for the written page, but our computer screens are in landscape format. So the challenge with the screen capture or the image capture is that if it scrolls off the page, how do we adequately capture an image that can be resized and presented on different screens and different devices without losing enough quality that it becomes unreadable for the user? So there are a number of different ways you can capture an image, but I found by far the easiest way to capture a clean image file, certainly a clean image file of a scrollable page, is by using Snagit from TechSmith. It's a great third-party application that you can download, and they have Snagit for both Windows, which is what I use, as well as Apple Macintosh systems. If you don't have Snagit, then you can download the free trial version here. I provided the link that will give you the access to the download for whatever your system is. They will give you a 15-day free trial with this, but then if I recall, when that 15 days expires, I'll ask if you need another 10 days, I think it is, to go ahead and evaluate the product before making a purchase decision. So you can get up to, I believe, 25 days total for free evaluation of the Snagit product before you need to purchase it. When you do go ahead and commit to purchasing it, and I recommend it, if you're going to be doing a newsletter every month, it's going to be worth the $49.95 that they're charging you. Now, in the screen captures that you will have access to, the screen captures, oh, and I see a typo there. The screen captures will actually be of the 2018 version, simply because I haven't upgraded to the 2019 version yet, but my understanding is that they really haven't changed. So they should be identical, but if there's a slight difference, that would be the reason why. Now, because there are so many screen captures that you have to do and a step-by-step, and it just makes these presentations kind of unwieldy, what I'll do is I'll go through each of the steps for you guys through this webinar. But then for those that have subscribed to the City Bishop Group coaching and have access to the portal, there will be an accompanying document available by tomorrow that will have all the screen captures that correspond to the actual step-by-steps that we'll go over, just in case the screen captures will be helpful to you. All right, so first thing we'll talk about, since most everybody will have their newsletter in a PDF form, is how do we get it from a PDF into an image file, and specifically how do we do that using Snagit. And this is one that I get a lot of private coaching questions for, which is why it was important to go ahead and include it here. So regardless of where you get your newsletter, if it's in a PDF format, I recommend using Snagit, and then these will be the steps that you will follow to go ahead and get that Snagit captured into an image file. So the first thing I do is I start with clearing my desktop. What's nice in Windows is you've got the little Windows logo on the taskbar in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. If you right-click on it and then select the desktop option at the bottom, no matter how many windows you have open on your screen, it'll go ahead and minimize all of those. So it won't close them out. It will simply minimize them so you have a clear desktop. Next thing I recommend is that you open up your newsletter, your PDF version of the newsletter, and I recommend that you use Adobe's Acrobat Reader, their DC application, because that provides the most consistent results, as opposed to using some systems nowadays are opening up by default in like their web browser. for instance. And I don't recommend that simply because, again, of inconsistency with the results of the display. So most everybody should have, if you're getting PDF documents, you're able to view them, you should have Adobe Acrobat Reader DC on your system. If you don't, you can download it for free. And I do apologize, I didn't think about including that link here, but you should be able to find that. Once you open up the PDF, I recommend expanding the size of the viewing window slightly larger, or you can make it full screen, but you want it to be larger than 100% a viewing size of the PDF. So I don't recommend the PDF be over 100% or under 100%. We want to capture what the system determined to be the best layout and presentation for the text, fonts, and everything else, which is at 100% screen capture. So I would go ahead and recommend opening that, expanding the window size. If you do full size, set your display for your PDF itself to 100%, and then you will go ahead and open up Snagit. Now, Snagit will open up, if you're familiar with the application, it opens up a little box for me, it's in the right-hand corner of the screen, and it's got a number of different options in there, and it's very noticeable because you'll see a giant red capture button on the screen. And in the screen captures that I'll have for you guys, I'll also have what the different options are, but the default options should work perfectly fine for you. When you click the red capture button, all right, you'll receive crosshairs, and the window you'll see will noticeably change. And what the system's allowing you to do is select the area within the window that you want Snagit to focus on. So you want to click on the area that's holding the main view of your PDF, and that will activate that section. You'll notice that because, again, you'll see a different display on your screen, and then you'll see little gold and blue bar right around that window. Now, if you're off a bit, you can always readjust it, but you should be able to see that because it senses exactly which window. This will be the window inside of Adobe Acrobat Reader that you actually want the program to focus. So then the next thing you do is you'll take, and you'll notice there'll be little handlebars on the left and right. If you've selected that section right, you just want to drag and resize those just larger than the actual newsletter itself. Because at the end of the day, you want just the newsletter to be presented to your readers, okay? Once you do that, you'll notice that above the display is going to be a little toolbar from Snagit. It's got a couple different icons in there. One icon's got a camera with arrows pointing in all four directions. That's your panoramic picture toolbar button. That's the one you're going to want to click to go ahead and start capturing what they refer to as a panoramic picture. Once you click that, it'll bring up another menu, kind of a floating menu above that says Start, to go ahead and capture your panoramic picture. So you'll click the Start button, and then you'll see that little menu box will go away, and you'll just have the view of your PDF there. What you'll do now is you'll slowly scroll down to the bottom of your image. Okay, so when you get down to the very bottom, you want to do it slowly because it's trying to capture. So you go down slowly to the very bottom, and then what you'll do once you get to the very bottom of your newsletter is that, so the very bottom is now being displayed. You can either click the Snagit application in your toolbar that's open, or you can hit the Alt-Tab if you're using Windows to reveal the Stop button for Snagit. Once you see the Stop button, click on Stop, and then Snagit will actually do some processing, and then it will show you the image that it captured. So I always take a close look at the image, make sure that it's not jumbled, that everything is captured nice and smooth, and it looks like to be a great image. If it is, then what you'll want to do is click Save As to save the file in a designated folder using a recognizable naming convention, simply because I find that's a lot easier to keep track of what my image files are. And so I have an example here. In this particular case, Old Republic, my last name, newsletter, and then the month and year of that particular newsletter. I recommend saving in PNG format as that provides the most flexibility and better results than you'll find with your JPEG, your JPG, or any other file formats. Most of the systems will automatically resize them as part of the view, and the PNG format actually does a much better job when the image is either shrunk or grown, depending on the viewer screen. So that's another reason why I really like that. So now that you've captured the image, everything looks fine, you've saved it out, now you can go ahead and close Snagit and get ready to move on to the next step. And this just gives you an example here of what the full newsletter image is. So in this particular case, I did an old newsletter from August 2018. This is actually a great example of what you would get with Old Republic. So you can see Old Republic provides the content. I just added my name, some contact info, and that's about it. For the most part, they provided the newsletter for that particular month. And then I ended up downloading the PDF file. And then using the steps that we just walked through, this is what I was able to create. So now I've got a PNG file of the actual PDF newsletter, and it's for the full newsletter. One alternative would be to do one page at a time, which is a bit of a pain. I know a lot of us are short on time, so this is a great way to be able to capture a full multi-page newsletter, and you can do so in one image file. Okay, so now we're going to talk about sending out your first MailChimp newsletter. So we're going to go ahead and log on to MailChimp. You'll click on the templates menu option, which is at the top, which will take you to their template section. And then over on the right-hand side, there will be a Create Template button. Now, this is whether you're going to be creating the newsletter directly inside of MailChimp, or if you're going to be using MailChimp to send out a pre-created newsletter. This would be the process to go to get that template started. And you'll see that MailChimp actually brings up all kinds of different options for different layouts and things like that when it comes to the different email newsletters or the email formats that they have available. My suggestion, since most of us use the pre-created newsletter, so we'll have a PNG file or image file that we'll upload, is just to go ahead and select, go into the basic section, and then create the one column or the one column full width, okay, option for the email itself. And then what it will do is it will change the display. You'll have the email structure in front of you in the left panel and a bunch of tools in the right panel. And you'll find that if you mouse over the left panel sections, you'll see that they're done in blocks. So it's a nice thing about the MailChimp construct is that they allow you to add and remove blocks of information. And if a block is empty, that block won't actually be displayed in the final product when it goes out. So you have the option. One is a little pencil icon. So for the main body content section, you'll want to click on that to edit the block. So that's the edit block tool that's in the left panel. Then what you'll see is on the right-hand side will be the content from that left panel will show up in the right panel. And just to get started, since we're talking about the first MailChimp newsletter, I always recommend just leaving the content there because it's a good example of what you could do using some of the text tools. It could just be good inspiration. You may delete it later or simply may modify it for your liking. But add a blank line, just like you would any other editor, to the top of that section in the right panel. And then you'll click on the Content Studio tool, which is actually very similar to an insert an image that you will find in any of the Word products. It's just like a little picture icon in the top bar. You'll click on that, and that's for the Content Studio tool. And again, I'll provide screen captures for those folks that need them in a separate document. When you click on the Content Studio tool, this will actually take you to the files that you've currently uploaded inside of MailChimp. So if this is your first time doing this, you won't have any files yet. First thing you'll do is you'll click on the Upload button located on the top right, and you'll follow like you would any other process inside of your system. You'll go to the location where the file is, and you'll select the newsletter image file that you want to use for this particular template. Select the uploaded image, and then you click Insert. And the next menu, once you've hit Insert, the next page will actually give you a bunch of different options that allows you to adjust things such as the width. I know that's always a concern is, how do we resize an image file, especially for an email-based delivery. And so what's nice about the MailChimp tool is that it will show you by default the current settings, so the width and height of the image that you're attempting to insert. And then using that, you can go ahead and make adjustments. So if you know that you want folks to have maybe be able to view it within an 800 pixel count width. Most screens nowadays are over 1900, but back in the day, 800, 1024 were big. So if you want to adjust it down, you can do that. Before you make any adjustments, I always suggest checking the Keep Proportions box that you'll find just to the right of those proportions. And then any adjustments you make to one will automatically adjust the other. The other thing I suggest doing is use the image URL link. That way there, if somebody wants to click on the image itself in the email, it'll actually take them to the image itself, which is a little bit more, maybe more convenient for them to view. So continuing with the options for the image, you'll check Open in a new window box. Again, if somebody were to click the image itself inside of your email, this will just open it up and prevent any potential problems or conflicts with something they may be viewing. If you want to change your image style options, so many of the newsletters themselves, the borders may not be clearly defined, especially depending on how well you screen capture it. So if you want to then add a border around it to help define the space, that would, you can do that here if you want to change the alignment. If you want to add alternate text, and so what alternate text is when they mouse over an image or where the image should be, this would be the text that they would see that describes the image. And you can even set margins as well. But then once done, you can hit Save and Insert. So all of those are optional. You don't need to do those. You can even just go down to hit Save and Insert and leave everything as it was. But I recommend certainly those first few items that we talked about up on the previous slide, which is to set the image. Make sure you keep proportions box and use the image URL link. I think that will be something that consistently you would want to do. And in some of those others, image style options would be optional. All right, once you've inserted the image, right now, essentially you have your newsletter done, outside of the fact that you have that text at the bottom that you'll want to either delete or modify. Essentially, you now have the newsletter, and you should see your image in both the right panel and the left panel. So at this point here, you can click and Save and Close at the bottom of the right panel, which will get you out of that edit mode for that particular block. And then you can click Save and Exit if you're done with that section. It's located at the bottom right of the window. If you hit Save and Exit, it'll ask you to name your template. And then it'll take you to your templates page where you'll see your brand new template is created and now available in that templates section. Now that you have your template done, so you've uploaded your pre-created image, you've defined it, you've added any adjustments or customization features you wanted to, such as a little frame around the image or what have you. And you've even modified or removed the text below. You can even remove the text below the image. Now you've got it completed and ready to send out your first newsletter. So while you're in the template section, you'll see over to the right, by default, it's got an edit option. So you can always go back in and make changes to it if you aren't done. But when you're ready, you'll click the drop-down arrow and you'll select Create Campaign. So campaigns are what MailChimp uses to send out your newsletter. So every month you send out a newsletter, you're going to have a new campaign. And what's nice about that is that because they do it that way, they can actually keep track for you your engagement with each and every mailing. So you can take a look at each one and see how many folks have actually opened your newsletter, how many folks have engaged with the newsletter, how many clicks, things like that. And because they do that on a per campaign basis, it makes it a lot easier to do. Now, just keep in mind, and this had been covered in previous webinars, that MailChimp is able to do that because in order for folks to be able to view your email that you've sent them, they will need to view images in their application, in their email application. And by doing view images, what that does is each email has basically a hidden image file that really does nothing, but it acts as a beacon for MailChimp. So when folks actually load that, they'll be able to know that they actually did view images inside your email, and that's how they know that they've actually viewed your email that's gone out. It's been a much more consistent way of tracking engagement because of the changes, and I guess it's been a little while now. I've been doing this a long time, but changes in your email systems where they give folks the opportunity to opt out of sending back some sort of delivery or read report. So if you request a read receipt or delivery receipt, there's no guarantee you'll receive it because the mail program on the other side actually allows the reader to opt out of sending that back to you. So in this particular case, as long as they do a view images for your email, which it would need to do in order to be able to see your newsletter, then MailChimp will recognize that they've opened it and be able to let you know exactly who's seen it, how many times they've seen it, especially if they forward it on to other people, and gives you an idea of who it is that who you're engaging with and who it is you might need to try to do a better job staying in touch with. When you go to create campaign, you'll see basic information. A name for your campaign. You'll select the list. So whichever group of contacts you want it to go to. You could have multiple lists, so you can select, but only one per campaign. So you can select the list that you want the campaign to target. So these are the folks you want the email to go to. You can there's a test email option down below. So you put a header, a subject line, something catchy to get their attention. And if you just want to see how it looks, use the test email link at the bottom. Have it send you, or you can even send a test email to somebody else. Have them view it on their screen, take a look at it, make sure there are no typos, everything looks good. And then you can even go down and link the supported social media accounts to it so that when you do launch the campaign, you can automatically have it posted on those different social media platforms as well. Now, if you need more than one sitting to get all of this ready, they offer up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a finish later button right next to a schedule or send button. So use the finish later when you're in the middle and you're not quite ready to send it out. And then once you're ready to send it out, then you can click schedule to actually define a launch day and time for that campaign, or hit send to go ahead and get it sent out right away. So when I was talking about the editor earlier inside of MailChimp, you've selected your platform, your formats. In this case here, I went with the basic one column, and you can see on the left-hand side, you've got the logo right now is empty, so it wouldn't show up in the email because there's no content there. But I did select it's time to design your email on the left-hand side, which is now represented on the right-hand side. You can see I just added an extra line at the top, and then I selected the Content Studio, and you'll see the little icon there, little picture icon. I selected that to get me to that next step of inserting my image. And then you're right where we had finished up. So you hit the save and close, hit the save and exit, and then you'll go through just the other steps as we talked about to prepare and send out your newsletter. So again, I know this is very difficult with it being technology, and it's all step-by-step stuff, which is never fun to talk about. If you have any questions that I haven't covered, be happy to go over them with you. And then please know that I will provide all of the screen captures for both the Snagit creation of an image file from a PDF, through creating your through creating your first MailChimp newsletter. That'll be available on the portal. Okay.
Hey, Gary, by the way, there
Yes.
are a couple questions. Bob was asking, let me see here. There's a couple of them. One of them, he says, you are familiar with Samson Properties newsletter. How, how would you utilize that to put together a monthly newsletter?
Okay, great question. I would use that just the same way as I showed using the Old Republic as an example. You will go ahead and customize. I know Samson provides a customizable newsletter. It is you can get the different formats. I get the publisher format. I customize it. I save it out as a PDF because it does not. Or actually, no, I think for that one, I print to a PDF because I know I think saving a publisher was an issue, creating it to a PDF version. So I did a print to PDF using a Microsoft PDF print driver to create one image, one PDF of the document. And then I just followed the steps for Snagit to do the capture. And then the steps I just used for MailChimp to do the upload.
Okay, good. And the other one that that he asked as well is, how do you resize a PNG formatted image? It says when you do, the entire newsletter in one image, is it printable by recipients? So two questions. So
Gotcha. So, okay, so that is a challenge because we're dealing with screen, which is a little different than what you would have on paper. And it's if they're printing an image file, then I know that's harder on your printer to print an image file than it is actually to print a text document. So I think most folks will more than likely keep them computer-based, but essentially what I would do is you could utilize a couple different graphic editing tools to resize. So open up the PNG inside of an editor that's provided with your system, and most of those will allow you to do provide a resize option. The other thing that I would make use of would be the settings inside of MailChimp, so that when you upload the image, that one section after you say insert allows you to specify the dimension. So I do keep proportions. And then I adjust the width. I would say no more than 900. I usually do 800 myself, recognizing that a lot of people still probably view on their devices. But what's nice about that is that it's going to be viewable in most everything, especially nowadays since we can shrink them and grow them, and it will actually maintain very good quality when they do that. So I would utilize those. You've got your tool in your application, your tools that can do that. But for your newsletter, I would use the resize when you're inserting the image into the newsletter.
let me see if there are any others here real quick, just to make sure. Yeah, looks like we're good. Yeah. Yeah, Bob went ahead and gave his email, which I'm sending over to you. So,
All right, great. Yeah, if there are no more questions, I mean the challenge with these again is the step-by-step process. You'll have those here in the presentation that you can take a look at, so you can follow along. It's not overly complicated. Once you've done it once, I think you'll remember it quite easily, but it'll be there as a great resource. And then for those that need that visual connection as well, we'll definitely have the screenshot images that will correlate with the step-by-step. That way they'll have access to both. That'll make sure that they're not missing something. At the end of the day, they're going to have a reliable, easily reproducible process for being able to stay in touch with their database on a regular basis. And with both MailChimp and Realty Juggler. Again, using Realty Juggler for categories to be able to assign folks basically to different groups if you want to be able to target them differently, and having different lists as well inside of MailChimp. You can actually create targeted groups if you do different types of mailings through MailChimp, and then with MailChimp's reporting, be able to keep track of the activity that you're seeing.
Perfect.
Okay, so next steps, really at this point here, if you haven't done it, my recommendation is jump in there, follow the steps, certainly get into the portal and download the images. We'll let you know as soon as they're online, but download the screen capture images if they'll be helpful, but the step-by-step should be pretty clear. I walked through those again this morning just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But follow those and then start utilizing these tools to send out your newsletters. Sending out through Realty Juggler is another option. We can cover at a different time. Far fewer steps, but you lose the reporting capabilities that you have with MailChimp, which is why I use MailChimp mostly for my newsletter type deliveries, and I use Realty Juggler for different types of email. All right, well, that covers it for this week. Thank you very much for attending. I hope the information is useful and hope everybody is able to see profound results by following them. Have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.